Conservative protagonists, particularly in superhero media in modern times, are a bit rare, especially heroic examples. Hell, the only real mainstream character who would be considered conservative and both treated as a positive example and not derided or hated by modern sensibilities would be Hank Hill off the top of my head. While many could be seen in this view during the early days of comics, especially after the Comics Code Authority set its vice grip on them for several decades, there's no denying from the very start of the likes of Superman or Captain America, superheroes more often than not held progressive ideals. While it's not a one-size-fits-all statement, with many grains of salt to be taken, it's not controversial to say today, especially in modern times, superheroes are often written still with this progressive mindset guiding their paths. And when conservative-coded characters do show up, they're often either misguided at best or, Lex Luthor. It's difficult to find positive conservative characters who remained conservative who aren't written as villains or straw-filled assholes. You can find a handful of such characters in indie circles, but rarely mainstream these days. For me, there's only two who would qualify, one being everyone's favorite propane and propane accessories Texan, and the other being Peacemaker. No, not that Peacemaker. Gunn's Peacemaker.
I cherish peace with all my heart. I don't care how many men, women, and children I need to kill to get it.
Okay, so hear me out on this. Hey team, Phantom Skull, the super security VTuber here, and today we're looking at the DCU's edgelord tryhard Peacemaker to analyze this hot mess of a patriot, to see his journey from star-spangled psychopath to well-meaning jackass hero, and Gunn's attempt to humanize a very disturbed right-wing character while not excusing his actions. So lock and load and get your best hair metal albums because it's time to rock. Before we begin, heavy unmarked spoilers for the following. Also, while I will be censoring a lot to make this YouTube friendly, I should point out that Peacemaker is a bit of a darker and more black comedy show than I'm used to talking about on the channel. So here's a bit of a content warning for the following. They've really let Gunn unchain his inner edge for his streaming shows, I've noticed. Also, the edits and cuts for this will be a tad schizophrenic as Warner Brothers copyright bots have zero chill. We'll quickly go over his comics origin, since surprisingly there's only a handful of differences between the two. Originally one of the OG Charlton Comics characters before getting bought out by DC, he was created by Joe Gill and Pat Boyette in 1966. Christopher Smith is a pacifist diplomat so committed to peace he's willing to use force as the superhero Peacemaker to achieve it. There's too much to go into about his exact lore, or the other people who've taken up the Big P mantle, so we'll go over the main bullet points with Comics Chris. He was very loyal to the US government to a fanatical degree, being on the very short list of superheroes willingly and not blackmailed into serving government agencies like Checkmate. His obsession with fighting and killing for peace is stemmed from the trauma and shame of his father taking himself off the census, and being revealed to have been a commandant of a Nazi death camp who escaped justice. And he was an extremely mentally disturbed man who thought the spirits of people he killed or were killed near him inhabit his helmet and give him advice. And sometimes he's haunted by his Nazi dirtbag father's ghost. Allegedly. Also a fun bit of trivia, he was the inspiration for the comedian in Watchmen, whose casts were all dark parodies of Charlton Comics characters. The differences between Comics Peacemaker and DCU Peacemaker are pretty minimal. At their cores, they're both mentally disturbed patriots who are willing to kill and maim in the name of bringing peace. The only real differences between the two are DCU Chris's asshole dad is a more modern right-wing neo-Nazi over an old-school one. And ironically, DCU Chris is much less mentally unwell than Comics Chris. Like, make no mistake, DCU Chris has major issues, but he's not seeing dead people. Initially anyway. And probably the core difference between the two is that Comics Peacemaker is taken far more seriously in spite of his deranged background and motivations, while DCU Peacemaker is a hyper-violent, sad clown nobody takes seriously. But let's dial it back and start at the beginning for DCU Chris. This is Christopher Smith, known as Peacemaker. In his hands, anything is a deadly weapon. His father was a soldier who trained his son how to kill from the moment he was born. Hey, wait a minute, that's just the same thing as Bloodsport does.
But better.
What the hell? Okay, jokes aside, let's do that again, now with the context added with his spin-off show. Christopher Smith is the son of infamous white supremacist supervillain Auggie Smith, aka the White Dragon. After a childhood of violent abuse and trauma, which included accidentally killing his brother and being forced to deliberately kill people by his father's command, he grows up to become the violent vigilante Peacemaker, a patriotic psycho skilled in hand-to-hand and firearms augmented by high-tech helmets made by his dad, with a vow of bringing peace no matter how many men, women, and children he has to kill to obtain it. At some point he was caught and arrested, and put into Amanda Waller's Task Force X project. He was assigned to the team to handle the Project Starfish incident in Puerto Maltese during the events of the Unalive Squad movie. Unlike the others, Waller tasked him with knowing the truth about America's involvement in the authoritarian country's evil space starfish experiments, and ensuring this knowledge was buried. He was also assigned to kill anyone on the team who figured it out and refused to cover it up, which unfortunately included All-American hunk Rick Flag Jr. After being hospitalized by fellow Task Force member Bloodsport, he wakes up back in the States recovering from his injuries. While at first thinking he was free, it's quickly revealed Waller just has him on a long leash, passing him off to Clemson Murn's team to be their super asset. Though that's not saying much from their point of view. Now with a team that hates his crazed guts and having to reconnect with his equally disturbed BFF and monster of a father, Peacemaker dives into stopping an alien invasion of body-snatching butterflies while grappling with an existential crisis about his life, beliefs, and wish to be more than a violent joke to people, and soon comes at a crossroads about what kind of person he wants to be moving forward. At the start of his spin-off series, you wouldn't be wrong in thinking Chris is a walking right-wing strawman. But while Gunn is very on the nose with the politics of the DCU, he puts in the work to ensure Chris is a fully fleshed out character. That's still taking the piss out of modern right-wing bull. DCU Peacemaker at first is an edgy, try-hard asshole who mocks everyone around him, is obsessed with projecting an air of hyper-masculinity and patriotism, while at the same time being an unstable man-child who believes every conspiracy theory and gross superhero rumor he hears on social media. Oh, except for the one about Aquaman being a fish fucker, that one is totally real. Despite his ego, it's outside of the events of Unalive Squad and during Peacemaker Season 1 that we discover Chris isn't that well known or respected as a superhero. The few who recognize him know him as a violent vigilante who went to prison at best, or mistake him for his shitty dad and assume he's racist like him. Murn's task force has little respect or patience for him, both resenting him for murdering Rick Flag Jr., and deriding him for his hyper-macho red-pilled douche persona. The only one who treats him semi-friendly is newbie agent Adebayo, who's revealed to be the mother of all family hires, as in Waller's daughter. Adebayo has a lot more patience for Chris's antics, meeting his crass snark with her own sass while still trying to legitimately befriend him. While Chris continues to be standoffish, even early on you can see he lights up around her due to her not being immediately turned off or repulsed by his edgy humor. At the same time, she's not afraid to call him out if he crosses too far a line for her. I think it's important to understand something about Chris's character as we continue with this video. While he's not a good person, particularly during the events of Unalive Squad and during the beginning of Peacemaker, he's not a remorseless monster like his father. While he's very insensitive with his jokes, he's not a racist or a homophobe or any kind of phobe. While his sexuality has been described as messed up according to Gunn, he's been confirmed to be bisexual and has had experiences with men. While he's crass about sexuality and taking the piss out of Adebayo's status as a lesbian, he has no ill intent. In many ways, he's a walking allegory for modern, edgy, right-wing youth, in the body of a wrestler portraying a psychotic man-child. Although it's not a constant nor a one-size-fits-all situation, most guys all go through an edgy phase. At best, you could be the type to come up with a Shadow the Hedgehog D&D rogue persona for yourself, and then go die in a corner from the cringe. or at worst being a repugnant little shit spewing slurs and game awards on the latest COD lobby you learned the day before, because from your point of view it makes you think you're a badass. A lot of it is projecting an aura of manliness or coolness to circumvent insecurities or even trauma in some cases, obsessing over not being seen as weak by the standards of dickbags. Most grow out of this phase as they mature, but some, particularly ones that fall deeper down the edgy right-wing pipeline, don't. Chris definitely never grew up past this stage. Everything about him is a front for his insecurities. His obsession with his manly persona, his tacky red, white, and blue color scheme on everything he owns, his obsession with guns, his standoffish dick do-bro attitude, all projections stemming from his need to prove himself to his twisted father. And Auggie here is a real piece of work. Behind the slick, supervillain power armor, gadgets, and somehow making a pocket dimension armory that makes DCU Lexes look like a rush job, he's just an abusive, full-on KKK asshole. He constantly berates Chris for being a wimp in his eyes despite his feats and skills, and blames him for his brother's accidental death, in spite of the fact he made them fight for the amusement of himself and his fellow redneck pals. Auggie was a monster more so outside of the supervillain nonsense. He abused and mistreated Chris into becoming the unstable vigilante he is, even forcing him to kill people at a young age, having a sick smile on his face as the traumatized child did the deed. Auggie ultimately has no love for his son, putting the bare minimum effort into his gadget helmets compared to his own tech, admitting he only helped because he hoped Chris would kill a lot of minorities and gay people, something that makes our anti-hero very uncomfortable. That's the key difference between the two. A lot of Chris's nastier personality traits are a massive projection. He tries to emulate Auggie in a desperate attempt to connect with him, but deep down can't go to the same authentically vile levels of bigotry Auggie resides in, because even at Chris's worst, he legitimately lacks the level of psychotic hate his father has. While Chris spends most of Season 1 having to come to grips with his trauma and fear of his dad, who he wants to try and find some kind of connection with, he just refuses to see the monster he is until the events of Season 1 drive Auggie into attempting to murder his own son. What's ironic is, Auggie is a bigger loser than his own son is. Despite his supervillain rep and tech prowess, he's projecting even harder than Chris. For all his skills and feats, he's just a sad, washed-up bigot who's only respected by a cult of white supremacist dorks in white pillow sheets. And by the end of the season, both him and his cult end up dead because he taunts his son, thinking he has total control over him and that he would never kill him, only to be proven wrong. In the end, Auggie was the real deal of right-wing nutjob beliefs. A toxic, petty, abusive monster projecting his own insecurities by hurting others, and obsessed with controlling and fantasizing about killing his supposed lessers. Chris was always a wannabe in this area, desperate to try and emulate the toxic ideal of manliness his father demanded of him, until his new friends on Murn's task force helped him become a more authentic version of himself. And while Auggie is far from done with Chris, given that he starts hallucinating him near the end of the season, our hero at least is on the path to change. That's a core thing with Peacemaker during Season 1. The events of the Corto Maltese incident was the start of a wake-up call for him, particularly with his near-death experience and his guilt and trauma for killing Rick Flag Jr. His projecting and deflecting with his edgy humor just keeps getting in the way of this awakening for him. When alone, at least when he thinks he's alone, he breaks down straight up admitting he wants friends but keeps pushing them away to not appear weak. And the death of Rick Flag Jr., an innocent hero and fellow soldier, weighs heavy on him. When confiding in Vigilante, he admits he used to have a clear path in life, bringing peace no matter how many men, women, and children he needs to kill to get it. But now, in his own words, he feels like an empty psychopath. His life outside of his Super Black Ops adventures is pretty sad. Constantly berated by his abusive dad, his only friends being the equally unstable killer Vigilante, and a literal eagle named Eagly. He was able to deflect these facts until finally coming home. He spent his whole life being something he thought he was, but during season 1, he realizes he doesn't want to be that anymore. As he bonds with Adebayo, Harcourt, and even Economos, in between trying to stop the body-snatching butterflies, he soon discovers his bold claim of killing anyone and everyone in the name of peace was not something he was being as honest about as he claimed. When he's tasked with killing a butterfly-infected family of a governor, he chokes hard, revealing he's no longer the gleeful killer he was in Unalive Squad after his experiences. Granted, had Murd fully explained to him how butterflies worked at the time, specifically the part where they drill into their victims' brains to pilot their bodies like undead meat Gundams, he may not have balked at this task. But the point still stands that his boast of killing anyone for peace no matter the cost was as much of a front as the rest of his persona. When Chris peels away the macho projection and diet alt-right act, there's a kinder, more authentic side to him. His love of hair metal puts a lot of emphasis on him channeling his masculinity through their colorful and stylish flair. And Wood alone reveals he's a skilled pianist. Credit where it's due, John Cena really knocks it out of the park. He gives a lot more emotion and range than the average wrestler turned actor, not afraid to let his character be the butt of the joke. Unlike some people. His friendship with Adrian Chase, aka Vigilante, is interesting. At the start, he was the only person who actually gives Chris a crumb of respect or friendliness. While he's definitely out of his flipping mind, killing people for breaking any sort of law with only his bizarre code of ethics keeping him from being a straight-up serial killer, he's at least not racist? Real talk, while he's as equally unstable as Chris and idolizes Peacemaker in spite of how he treats him sometimes, he's not afraid to call out the fact his dad is a racist bastard who treats him like crap, and confronts him about being passive and dismissive of this fact. While he's not a fully healthy source of good advice given his warped ideals on crime fighting, he's still the only real ride-or-die friend Peacemaker has until he starts opening up to the rest of the team. His friendship with Harcourt starts rough due to both her rigid spy professionalism and his attempts to get into her pants fail miserably, but over time the two bond over their shared trauma of being disposable Black Ops agents, and Chris, while still infatuated with her, directs these feelings in a more respectful, by his standards, way. While the question of romance is still in the air, the two end season 1 as comrades in arms. The same can be said with Economos. While the two start hating each other's guts right from the start, the two form a mutual respect over the course of the season. And Chris shows legitimate regret about constantly mocking his poor dye job on his beard when he finds out just how self-conscious he is about it. But most of all, his friendship with Adebayo helps him the most with growing as a person. While she is a poor spy, she is a great influence on Chris with helping him open up and confronting his dad's abuse. Their relationship takes a nosedive when she plants a faked manifesto at Waller's insistence to have Chris take the fall for all of the butterfly-infested humans they killed. However, he eventually forgives her between understanding she too is a victim of desperately trying to appease an evil parental figure, and Adebayo herself goes out of her way to atone for betraying Chris, putting her life on the line to help destroy the butterfly's food source, and revealing her mom's entire Black Ops secrets to the public to exonerate her friend. The pivotal moment in Peacemaker's growth came when confronting the butterfly's leader, Goff. He was conflicted about the aliens' plans, both due to Murn keeping him in the dark about their exact operations, and the Queen legitimately trying to connect with Chris while under his detainment. The Queen, with Peacemaker close to destroying the creature that they use as their only food source, implores him to join their side, promising to bring true peace and prosperity by taking over the world via their body snatching and guiding humanity to a better future and avoid a similar bleak fate that befell their home planet. It's implied that Unalive Squad Chris, being a desperately dogmatic psychopath obsessed with his flimsy definition of peace, would have easily agreed to serving the butterflies. And as far as we can tell, this wasn't a trick by the Butterfly Queen, as earlier in the season, Golf had a chance to take over the body of Peacemaker and killing him, but instead chose to take over the detective trying to arrest him, implying this was her paying back Peacemaker for not killing her and keeping her alive during his detainment of her. As far as we can tell, the Queen was giving Peacemaker everything the old version of him would have wanted, but Chris wasn't that person anymore, and he had no intention of going back. After killing the cow and dooming the alien invaders to starving to death, Chris and his newfound friends tend to their wounds, and our hero contemplates his newfound freedom, though the ending of the season showing he's far from free from his demons, and Season 2 trailers showing that he's not free from all of the consequences of his past choices either. Peacemaker, while not everyone's cup of tea, is a powerful story of someone obtaining self-awareness and wanting to take the steps to being a better person. Once Chris is humbled into peeling away his toxic, hyper-macho edgelord projection, and surrounded by people who actually encourage his better traits, he becomes much more open with his emotions and wishes to be a hero people can actually look up to. But with this character development, does this mean Peacemaker is no longer conservative and gone woke, as the intellectually and ethically deprived would say? Hell no, he's still a proud red, white, and blue jackass. He loves his guns, he loves his loud muscle cars. Hell, he was happy to show up as a guest panelist in the DCU's Fox News parody to talk Superman. He's still a loud and proud conservative. The difference is he's got enough self-awareness to not let it become his entire personality, or let it be an excuse to be a vile piece of shit like his dad. He sticks to his ideals, but he now has much kinder and authentic ideals to go along with his guns and freedom beer. While Season 2 is gearing up to show he has a long road to making up for his past, and some of his choices may not be ones he can ever fully be forgiven for, he's taken the first steps to becoming a better person, which is sadly a rare outcome for guys like him. I'm excited to see where his character goes in Season 2, and the more wild and wacky side of the DCU from the unhinged lens of Peacemaker's crass adventures. While Chris is an asshole, he's become an asshole I love. Thanks for watching. Hey, thanks for checking out my video. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate a like and a comment. What are your thoughts on Peacemaker? Are you excited for Season 2? Be sure to subscribe for more super security silliness and video essays. Also consider joining my Patreon to help the channel more directly. But I appreciate any likes, comments, and shares. All support helps the channel grow. Assuming this video didn't get delayed to Season 2 should be right around the corner after I post this. So I hope you're as excited as I am. Thank you all again, and I'll see you all next time.